Good morning, everybody. I'm the course coordinator for the Bachelor New Media Arts program, and I teach into the first year and third year core subjects of the program. The subject I want to talk about today was developed out of our curriculum refresh project and was one of the key subjects alongside another technical subject which was developed to encourage students to engage with technology early on and overcome some of those fears, but also to kind of develop a sense of what it's like to be a media artist engaged with network technology, operating online, developing a kind of research pool of information that's generated off the web. I have to say I wasn't as brave as Liz, is it, in Cairns, the first presenter. I think what you're doing up there is exceptionally brave, doing it all online. I took the view that might be a step too far for first years, and it's really interesting hearing your comments on that. Basically, the structure of the subject is that we have a 90-minute lecture each week. There's then a 30 to 90-minute screening, depending on what the content is, of documentaries, short films, extracts from feature films, things that plug into the kind of the cultural atmosphere of what the lecture content is about. And then each week there's an online tutor who sits at the discussion board, who sits on LearnJCU, who manages another portal of kind of extra contextual content that's provided through LearnJCU. And I won't be talking too much about LearnJCU today, but it does form a very big part of this subject in terms of providing all of the type of content that sits alongside the lectures. Whether that's legal or not, I'm not sure, but there's that aspect to it, and there's also my personal kind of web blogs and things that I send students links to. There's basically myself delivering the lecture content, and there's the online tutor and about 130 students. The discussion board is, I'd say the statistics that Liz was talking about earlier on would probably bang on for what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, participation of 20 to 30%, a lot of people watching the discussion. The questions are kind of centred around, how do I get the next assignment done? What the hell was Mitch on about in that lecture? Did anyone catch the screening? Where's the, torrent download link for that one? So there is engagement online, and there was a kind of determined effort to make this a rich, engaged experience, because we are substituting basically that second 2 hours perhaps that normally would be a seminar or a workshop for this experience. And I'm reasonably happy with the engagement, and I'm reasonably happy with the amount of files that are being downloaded that I provide. Governing this subject is a third person who is a fictitious avatar. This is the second year we've run it. The first year was a mashup of William Gibson and Ridley Scott, and the second one was Bruce Sterling and H.G. Wells, and students get a special prize if they can work out who the two people are. But these are the person that each student must befriend on Facebook at the start of the semester. They don't use their own Facebook account, which is really important. They have to create a new one, and they create the new one by using their own name and then hyphenated with Gibson, or as it was this year, hyphenated Sterling. And we only accept friend requests from people who have that hyphenated name. So it basically creates their new Facebook identity inside that relationship that is not connected to their real world or my real world, which is very important. Things that happened in the 90s that my students don't need to know about. The assessment is centred around two phases. There is a third element, which is an exam, which is a content exam at the end, which is worth 40%. The two bits I want to talk about today is the reference environment, which is kind of developing a media arts content-rich environment based on Google, which allows them to receive information and develop a pool of understanding and resources on artists operating in the area, or other educational content related to their particular discipline. So initially they just learn the Harvard style. They have to go out to the library and photocopy a chapter out of a book, download a journal from the database, and buy a newspaper and cut out an article and scan it, and that's what's delivered early on. And then gradually they develop a Gmail account, they develop a Google homepage, and they populate that homepage with RSS feeds. So that's just some of the examples of some of the things that the students are scanning, and obviously it's around the topic area. The idea is that eventually that this Google environment will be used later on in collaborative subjects using Google Docs and so forth. For anyone who doesn't know, iGoogle can be like your homepage on your computer. It's connected to your Gmail account. It sucks in RSS feeds from websites and blogs and so forth. Some students go to great lengths to populate that, and sometimes it's just following information. In other instances, it's them actually looking at tutorials on Photoshop techniques, Illustrator techniques, filming, technology, all of the stuff that's kind of wrapped around new media arts. So there's this, even though they're little milestones for first year students to say, yes, I've done this, I've done that. It's like 2%, 3%, 2%, 4%. But what they're doing at the same time is developing connections with industry information that is relevant to their discipline, and hopefully getting used to that Google environment as something that will become useful in the future, but also collaboratively useful, because especially in third year we spend a lot of time using Google Docs. The second phase is to then produce an online presence. Surreptitiously, we're producing an online presence, and that's by getting them to post images to Flickr, to upload videos to YouTube that they write the script for and talk to the camera, produce a blog which is related to the content that they've delivered. Basically, the object digitization is the photograph of an object, any inanimate object that can't be alive. That kind of totally gets rid of pictures of cats. It has to be something that has some kind of significance or meaning that you can, then respond to in a creative way. So it's a Flickr post and then a video about that object, including the object in the video, piece to camera effectively, a blog which then expands on that script with hyperlinks and further investigation, possibly further research, and then an actual creative response, which can be anything as long as it is submitted in digital form on the blog. So it could be a painting, but then that painting might be scanned or photographed. What's happening there is, unlike the first environment where what we're seeing is a use of the university's Tropicat system and the databases, and then moving into Gmail and iGoogle and RSS feeds, and then storing it on a server, which is the other surreptitious part of this operation, is getting them to name files correctly. And in a system that I actually take marks off if you don't name the file correctly, and depositing it in the appropriate spot on the school server, so that they can be then double marked if it somehow gets lost in the world. The second phase of the object digitization is then to use these online web resources that they've heard of, they've seen, they understand, they're familiar with from a consumption point of view, to become producers of content, and how that can be arranged and how people make content on those sites look a little bit better than the average person. So they engage with those familiar logos and icons, but they're actually being producers. And still we do get aspects of that work to also be deposited on the server as a backup for the school for any kind of future reference. The Facebook effect obviously, people know how to make friends on Facebook, so that's kind of what ends up happening, and that's from a first year experience. That's quite good. What you're seeing is students befriending their pseudonyms. You know, they're not their real identities, they're their fake identities, shall we say. So that obviously happens. We then see people telling each other how to do things using Facebook to solve problems about assessment items. They start depositing their work up there, but they don't only deposit their work, they deposit ideas for work or work towards assessment items for people to comment on. And this just happens organically. So this is a really kind of encouraging thing. Then you see people commenting on what people are doing. So it's almost like instant feedback for some of these guys. I, as a rule, don't go in there and make comments. I think it's important that they do that, and they do. I mention it early on, and they kind of follow on. There's some very genuine, heartfelt responses to some of the works. This is a creative response to an object. Sometimes those objects are, you know, mementos from loved ones who've passed on and things like that. You do get some very, you know, strong emotional responses. So generally people are very supportive. Then you start to see people doing things like this, collaborating on other things and, you know, talking about meeting up and so forth at school and swapping ideas and feedback and so forth. So that's all very good. Quite frightening, the types of ads that you get, though, on these types of sites. I don't know if that's how those algorithms work, Lindsay, but very strange. I was actually wearing that shirt the first day I saw that ad, that one on the left. And I was sitting at the computer and they're advertising a shirt that I had on. It was quite scary. The object digitisation, that's an example of some of the photos. And then the outcomes are tactile, and photographs of tactile outcomes. And for a new media arts program, I thought that was very interesting. And then, of course, you've got your exceptionally engaged new media outcomes. I guess the four outcomes are that the Google reference environment teaches people to work online, research online, manage the information flow as it comes through, make sure it's bespoke for their area. Facebook as a tool, not as a mode of entertainment or for social interaction. It engages them with their peers. It's instant with their feedback. It road tests ideas. And most importantly, social media is a professional calling card for artists. So they behave respectfully on Facebook. They have a good profile of who they are. It's not just about what I did last night or what I'm going to do tonight. And the good thing is that research environment's online all the time. It doesn't matter what computer you're on. You can be at your mate's house and you can still pull down your iGoogle account and see where you're at. And hopefully it's informing their practice, which I think the creative outcomes at the end seem to have tapped into the lecture content and tapped into that research environment. And it seems to be working for the most part. Thanks.
Thanks. Next up, we've got Lindsey Ward, who's going to talk through spring